China. Agriculture. Agriculture is a vital industry in China, employing over 300 million farmers. China ranks first in worldwide farm output, primarily producing rice, wheat, potatoes, peanuts, tea, and cotton. Although only accounting for 10% of arable land worldwide, China produces food for 20% of the world's population. Rice is China's most important crop. Rice is grown on terraced land. Terraced fields decrease erosion and surface runoff. Food imports. Over the past 10 years, U.S. food exports to China increased from 5 billion to roughly 26 billion in 2013. China switched to a U.S.-style meat-rich diet. Pork imports to China have surged in the past decade. China is a large beef importer, mainly from Australia. A huge amount of chicken is also imported from the U.S. Chinese consumers are also demonstrating a growing appetite for two California-grown products, nuts and wine.
Taboo foods.
It is believed that if a pregnant woman eats food that is not properly cut or mashed, her child will have a careless disposition. Also, there should not be 7 dishes on the table unless it is a funeral, as the number 7 is associated with mourning. Common foods. Common Chinese foods are wonton soup, egg drop soup, rice pudding, duck, various vegetables, dim sum, dumplings, and tea. For festivals, special foods are eaten. For the Chongyang festival, gao cakes made of rice or bean powder are eaten. In the past, newly married women go back home to spend the festival with their families. The gao cakes, decorated with dates, almond, or peanuts, signified the parents' good wishes for their daughters to give birth to a child in the near future. Also, mooncakes are eaten on Mid-Autumn Day. These mooncakes are round-shaped, representing family reunion and bright life. They are made with a sweet bean paste filling, flaky golden skin, and an intricate drawing or pattern. Women. In the time the Joy Luck Club takes place, women are considered weak and unintelligent. They are supposed to serve the needs of men, their fathers when they are young, their husbands when they are married, and their sons when they are widowed. This description is portrayed by Lindo, who is forced into an arranged marriage and must take care of her rude and spoiled husband, Tian Yu.
I saw Tian Yu at the evening meal. I knew what kind of a husband he would be because he made a special effort to make me cry. He complained the soup was not hot enough, and then spilled the bowl as if it were an accident. He waited until I had sat down to eat and then would demand another bowl of rice. He asked why I had such an unpleasant face when looking at him.
Not only was it common and acceptable for a husband to be cruel and verbally abusive to his wife, it was also typical for him to take one or multiple concubines. Anne May's mother was one of 4 concubines belonging to one man. Both daughters and wives were expected to keep their opinions to themselves, not speak unless spoken to, and to show no emotion on their face. Newborn traditions. Once a woman is pregnant, she guards her thoughts. In China, it is believed that everything she sees and does will influence her unborn child. Also, no construction work should be done in the house of a pregnant woman because the hammering and sawing could lead to a miscarriage and fatal deformities. To scare away spirits, pregnant women should sleep with knives under their bed. If she eats light-colored foods, the baby will be fair-skinned. Many believe it is unlucky to throw a baby shower for an unborn baby. In China, the party comes after the little one arrives. Chinese women will often drink a strong herbal potion to ease the pain of labor. Custom dictates that women do not fear the laboring process because birth is considered a woman's career to the ancient Chinese. Chinese women will give birth in an armchair or a futon. Once the baby is born, the mother will often pray to the goddess who helped her conceive with an offering of sweetmeats and incense. A Chinese woman wouldn't dream of naming her baby before it is born. In fact, in ancient China, unborn babies were given false names to scare away evil spirits. Parents referred to their baby as ugly, or sometimes as an animal, to trick the spirits into thinking the baby is not worthy of kidnapping. Naming ceremony. Once a child is older, he or she is named. The Chinese sometimes have 4 or 5 names for a person, one for childhood, one for school, one after graduation, and even one after death. In the Joy Luck Club, this was shown by Lindo, whose daughter, Waverly, was called by different names at different times in her life. As a child, Linda called her daughter May May, or little sister, because she had two older brothers, but when Waverly got older, her mother called her by her actual name. Men. In ancient China, men were considered strong and intelligent, and were honored for their wisdom and strength. They were merchants, farmers, ran the government, and were leaders of families. Men ruled the household and had complete control over his wife or wives. The only roles of the wife were to be a servant of her husband and to produce sons for them to carry on the family name. It was reasonable for a man to remarry if his first wife could not bear him a son. It was also socially acceptable for a man to take many wives as concubines. Although being a concubine was very dishonorable to a woman, she often agreed to it if her family desperately needed the money, or if the man was wealthy, like Wu Tsing from the Joy Luck Club.
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke.
Widows.
The life of widows in ancient China was no less miserable than that of divorced women. Although widowers could remarry without restraint, the pressure of public opinion prevented widows from remarrying. Not only was the remarriage of widows discouraged, it could be blocked by the husband's family. The only way a widow could retain a position of honor was to stay as the elderly, unmarried mother in her late husband's home. A widow's well-being was less important than the family's fame. Elderly. The oldest person in a family has the most respect, honor, and dignity because they are the closest to the ancestors. The elderly are allowed to criticize anyone they want. It is extremely disrespectful to interrupt an elderly person while they are speaking. In the business world, a person will not make a decision without the consent of a senior. When you arrive at a meeting or a banquet, you must always remember to greet the member with the highest seniority first. Historic versus modern. Women in China are highly employed and are often found to be in upper management. They're also taking more responsibility in families and taking more financial power. The one-child policy is a population control policy in China that limits most couples to have one child only. However, there are some exceptions. For example, families are allowed to apply to have a second child if their first child is born a daughter. Gao cakes made of rice or bean powder are eaten. In the past, I can't do it.
He complained the soup was not hot enough, and then spilled the bowl as if it were accident. I saw Tian Yu at the evening meal. I just can't. He complained the soup was not hot enough, and then spilled the bowl as if it were an accident.
Once a woman is pregnant, okay, yeah, I jacked that up. For example, families are allowed to apply to have a second child if their first son is born a daughter. Okay, guess that would be a problem. For example, families are allowed to apply to have a second child if their first child is born a daughter. Dang it! For example, families are allowed to apply to have a second child. Okay.
Okay.
No, just keep rolling it. Alright, ready? Beep, beep, boom.